Hi everyone, it's nice to see you all.
Hi Rhiannon.
Hi Rhiannon.
Hi Anne.
Hi.
Hi Rhiannon.
Hi Pallavi. So how do we get to see the Jamboard, Pallavi? Okay, so I mean, I guess this World Cafe session really is about trying to get people's thoughts in relation to that very brief presentation I gave just before, which is around trying to get our communities together to work to support mental health during recovery and post-pandemic, with a focus on, you know, improving well-being, really, common mental health issues, and engaging community and looking at the impacts on community well-being of the kind of activities that we know are already going on in the community. So really just like to open it up for thoughts. And Pallavi, I'm assuming you might be running the Jamboard, or is that open for everybody to post on? You're on mute at the minute, so.
Sorry. Yes, everyone can access it. There should be a link below the video, which has a Jamboard link, and it says click to view. So you should be able to do that, and you should be able to use the sticky notes here and just stick up, you know, stick whatever your thoughts are.
Okay, so if we exit full screen, then I can't actually see the original. I can't actually see the original link to the ARCFEST page now that I'm on Zoom, but I'm assuming there must be a way of posting on here.
Can you see this? Can you see my screen right now?
Yep.
Yeah, so can you see this Jamboard? It says click to view. So if you click on that, you should be able to see the Jamboard.
Well, it's not happening for me. It might be happening for other people. Should we just begin by discussing whether or not we think this is a good idea, and if so, how we think we could go about doing it? So open for discussion. Any thoughts from anyone?
Just so everyone's aware, your mic will be muted by default, so you need to tap the unmute button if you want to start discussion.
Okay, thanks, James. That's helpful. And Anne's just saying in chat, if you minimize your screen, you might be able to see the Jamboard. Do we have any public advisors in the room? Speak up if we do.
Yes.
Hi, Dorcas. It's nice to see you. I can see you now on the screen.
All right.
So, well, I can see your name. I can't actually see your face. So welcome to this session. I'm wondering, do you have any thoughts on whether or not this is an achievable kind of objective? Is it needed? Do we need to look at mental health post-pandemic, in your view?
I think it is important we look at it because a lot of people have been affected with depression and mental health because of the COVID. And because we're staying home so long, children, it has affected me as well. So it's a very, very important thing that we should discuss. And I know the other public advisors and the public themselves, they will tell you, isolating, not having anybody does affect you mentally.
It certainly does. And I suppose there's also a potential challenge in, you know, how easy is it going to be to get back to normal? How are people going to feel when they meet again face to face so regularly? Are they going to feel that it's risky, or are they going to feel okay? I mean, it's not going to be immediately all right again, I don't suppose, is it?
Well, I agree with you, Rihanna. It's not going to be immediately. Even though we are able to go out yesterday, I still haven't stepped out anyway. And the
Yeah.
same thing with me after the long lockdown. I have a feeling of I'm asthmatic. I've got comorbidity problem. I have a feeling of going out, and there are a lot of carriers there. Although I'm negative, I've done my test, but I still feel a bit saying, do I have to go out? That's
Yeah.
terrible, isn't it? But as an individual, I'm able to cope because I get involved in a lot of things. What about those people that are not, they haven't got any motivation to get up?
Mm.
I have motivation to get up this morning and be online. What about those? Don't let me talk about old folks. There might be younger ones as well that they feel rotten. They feel, what am I getting up for?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's another issue with getting up to face people now. How do we face one another? And
Mm.
it will be a slow process, and that's what we need to do.
Yeah, that's a really good point about motivation, Dorcas. Really well made. Thanks. It's a key, I think it's a key symptom of low well-being and you know, going into depression, that, you know, your motivation just drops. And so getting back to what we might call normal, whatever that is
know.
be more of a challenge for some people than for others. And I think that's really important. So how we approach that and how we make you know, the sort of road towards getting back to normal smoother, I think, is really important, isn't it? Any other
I think it's about maybe, I'm not saying to become more clinical or more medical, and it's about community and supporting one another, and our church community, Muslim community, or any other community. And then it's about the younger ones making sure the older ones are okay. And because they're starting to go back to work, the mothers are going back to work, the children are going back to school. And is this normality? How do we get into normality? And I can visualize how difficult it's going to be. For pensioners, because we have been used to staying home, we will try and adjust probably, visiting relatives. And now you only allow 3 bubbles, so you can't even see a lot of your friends. So what happened then? Because when I want to ask people to join me for coffee, we have to think about 3 households. When Christmas is coming, it might be meaningful to some, but some people it might not be. But it is important that how do we do this? Do we need to get people in slowly, and making sure communities and neighbors are asking for one another, and looking out there and say, is Mrs. Jones all right in number 5? How is Mr. Smith in number 7? I think that is important, but it's a challenge. I wouldn't say it is a challenge, and it's too cold. It's too cold at the moment, and it gets dark as well. So we don't want to go out for a walk, So there is so much that we have to try and adjust back to become normal. But what is normality?
Yeah, those are really good points. Thanks, Dorcas. Does anybody else want to speak around this particular issue and think of any ways that we might begin to address it in our research?
I mean, Rhiannon, I think another key point is, the mental health of those sort of people who are involved in organisations that are volunteering and supporting people at this time. I mean, I don't know if anybody saw, there was a news item the other night, and I can't quite remember which area it was in, but actually it was focusing on sort of the church community and vicars and people like that who are very involved in supporting people who are struggling financially, etc. And, it was really, really palpable just how distressed they were trying to support people, and the issues they were facing, and are really insurmountable in some instances, and that they felt sort of, if you like, ill-equipped to really the mental burden, I guess, of supporting people. And that was, you know, that's I think is a big issue potentially, in the, you know, obviously we're talking about very much about the positives of, you know, people being involved in supporting people and volunteering, but it's also the mental toll on those individuals who are providing the support.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, Adele. And I think that, you know, a strand in anything that we do should probably try to capture those potentially really negative and long-lasting impacts. You know, some of this, so essentially there are organizations which have sort of stepped in to become carers, if you like, into a role that they may have had some experience in previously, but which has now become, you know, that much more urgent, I suppose. And like you say, they're facing situations that for them and for all of us really are beyond our scope of understanding and delivering. And so you might imagine, for example, some higher incidence of things like traumatic stress after this. So
Yeah.
having the responsibility to do something about it and yet really not knowing what to do is a really big issue, isn't it, when you think about moving responsibility to the community. That's a really good point. Thanks, Adele.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else? What do people feel about, you know, steps within this process? We already know, and we've already got a beginning of an understanding around a scope of activities that have been going on through, certainly in Liverpool City region anyway, through the Live COVID B that Mark referred to in his introduction there. So scoping the activities that went on and then perhaps following up to capture some of the things that Adele talked about, some of the things that Dorcas has mentioned as well, to capture, you know, the impact of this kind of working. Does that feel possible across the Northwest Coast, or does it feel just too big?
What's happening, Rhiannon, is people are moving to their room, the next room now, and we're getting new people in.
Okay.
So I think that's why you're not getting much of a response now, because they caught you mid-sentence. If you want to repeat that question.
Okay. So yeah, I was just wondering about whether people thought that, you know, scoping out the kind of activities that were going on in the Northwest Coast communities to follow up the kinds of issues that Adele and Dorcas were talking about would be something useful to do as part of a research program.
Makes sense to me, Rhiannon. We need to pull things together across the patch, don't we, so that we've got that kind of critical mass and regional view about what we're doing and how we improve it.
Mm-hmm. Good, thanks, Tony. I'm glad it makes sense. Anybody else got any thoughts? Could anybody, you know, offer their thoughts on anything they've been involved in, perhaps? Ken, I can see you're here. I wondered if you have any knowledge of local activities in your patch around supporting the more vulnerable during this pandemic, and any thoughts that you might have on the impact on those volunteering or those involved, as well as on the recipients of that community approach.
We've not done a morning all. Ken Barnsley here from Blackburn with Darwin. Thanks very much. Yeah, we've not done any specific work on that, although it is in our we're kind of looking at that in a little bit of detail as to how we might approach it. I wouldn't say that we've I mean, we do have a big support system in terms of our health hub. We're just about to implement the COVID winter grant scheme, which is providing food, lighting and heating support for families with vulnerable families and children and others. So all of those processes are in place, but I wouldn't say that we've kind of really looked at what the impacts have been on those that are volunteering. And we do have a big program of people who are volunteering, along with people who've been kind of reallocated from different jobs into working on the health hub working on supporting our testing regime, and also beginning to think about how we engage those people to support the vaccination programs. So there's been a kind of a huge swift restructuring, and the kind of the impacts on mental well-being. I don't think we've really got processes in place to understand that, other than anecdotal reports that are coming through the kind of the management of that process. So anything I think that's been undertaken that we might be able to kind of link in with on that, I think could be really, really helpful from our point of view.
Okay, that's good to know. Thanks, Kenneth. Does anybody want to follow up with further thoughts, perhaps prompted by what Ken's been saying, or anything else? Is anybody, have we got any public advisors in this session now? It'd be good to hear your thoughts around whether exploring mental health post-pandemic is something that we should be focusing on.
Rhiannon, I'm a patient and public involvement lead for the Innovation Agency, which is the AHSM for the North West Coast. We're not directly involved with research, but obviously we're working with mental health and care homes, and a lot of our work has been put on hold because of COVID, because we can't get into care homes. It's made things a little bit difficult, and it makes you wonder what it's going to look like when we can get back in and start picking up some of the normal everyday things. So I don't know, I'm not sure if that links with what you were talking about, but I think mental health is going to be a huge thing, not just with patients, but with some of the care home staff as well post-COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point, and it's something that Adele brought up in the previous roundtable World Cafe session that we just had, Debbie. So, you know, focus on the people who've been providing support to try and understand, you know, the impacts on their well-being, I think is really an important strand of this. Any other thoughts?
Hi,
It's nice to see you.
Hi, yeah, nice to see you too. I just thought I'd feedback. We've just been conducting some research with young people, 11 to 14-year-olds, and their mental health. And there's been some really positive feedback actually about, I suppose, ways that their well-being has improved. And a lot of that is down to the fact they're really enjoying spending time with their parents. Mm-hmm. So I think that's something to take away actually, is how much some of them are reflecting on the fact they can see their parents at other times of the day and not just for an hour in the day. And some of the negative aspects obviously about not seeing their peers and having time with their peers, but how adaptive they've been in kind of modernizing their ways of how they do interact with friends or peers in school. But I think one thing that has come out is the support that's going to be needed for teachers. And that's something we're now going to look at. And actually a lot of the schools we've contacted have contacted us back to kind of ask us to do research with teachers because of the impact this is all having on their mental well-being.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's really interesting. So do you have a sense of what teachers are going through then?
We haven't, but I think the correspondence we've had with the teachers is just how stressful this whole situation is, especially when some classes are having to isolate and then come back, and having to update how they're going to teach their class, having half online, half in a classroom, and just all the stress that's come with it. And I think some teachers have felt a lot of negative press, if you like, that they're not doing enough, even though as a teacher in a university, I think we all know we're doing a lot behind the scenes that maybe isn't taken note of. And that's coming across from some of the schools, is that the teachers are feeling maybe that people think they're not doing as much as they are, and actually they're probably working more around the clock than they were before.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true. And I think, a strand in relation to planning research might be something along the lines of, with a view on teachers here because of what you've just been saying, but also more generally, you know, that sense of picking up the pieces, because everything sort of feels a bit fragmented, a bit fallen apart. So how do you pick up the pieces and how do you put the jigsaw back together again, I suppose, is a sort of a way of thinking about this, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I just reflected on it really after the previous person's comment on, you know, staff and carers and that kind of thing, is we're kind of focusing on obviously the patients and the young people, which is right, but I think sometimes that there's kind of another group which are being affected, their mental health and well-being is probably being impacted on.
Yeah, and we sort of automatically assume that they might be the more resilient, but you know, it's not often not the case, is it? So I think that's definitely a focus we should take. Has anybody else got any thoughts around what we might be able to do in this area? What's possible? Does anybody have any knowledge of any local activities that are going on that they would like to share with us?
I can talk again if you want. We had a self-harm trial that was due to start in primary care before lockdown, and that's now started in September. So because we already had that trial going on, we have been in touch with the Liverpool CCG just to keep up to date with how interactions in primary care or consultations may have changed for self-harm. So one thing that's come up, and this is coming out of conversations with local hospital trusts as well, is that in the first lockdown, there was a lot less attendance you know, in hospital or primary care for suicide and self-harm. But in the second lockdown, it hasn't been as low. And if anything, it's been higher. So there's just been some interest in why there was a sudden dip in the first one, but that hasn't kind of, you know, it's not had the same impact now. And is that because people are more ill now, or is it because they've kind of got used to this whole, the new way of living, and that you don't have to stop contact? You know, it's just that.
Okay, so we lost Pooja, then she's been popped off to another session, presumably.
Yeah, she has. We're going to get a new bunch of people in now.
Okie dokes. So are we getting anything on Jamboard, Pallavi? Because I'm not able to look at it. You're on mute.
Just not used to this. Yes, I'm just kind of popping Jamboard. If you can see, I've just got a few things there based on what people have sort of reset.
That's good. Have you been doing this as we've been going along, or people post these? Yeah.
One of them, someone actually posted about the GP video consultations, but otherwise, this is mainly from the people who've spoken.
Okay. Yeah, looks good. So are we full complement now with the next session?
I think so. Yes, we are.
So we've been talking really about how we can advance this area of research around supporting mental health and well-being post-COVID and during recovery. There's been talk around local authorities, NHS trusts, you know, being too busy dealing with the emergency to really have had a focus on the effect of mental health and well-being in communities. So Ken was saying it would be a very useful thing to look at. People have referred to you know, getting back to normal and how that might take a long time, and how we can smooth the pathway potentially to get back to normal. There's been a lot of focus on considering both the positive and the negative impacts on staff or volunteers, who've been supporting people through the pandemic, and I think that's a really important strand that we would follow up in anything that we do. And support for teachers was also mentioned by Pooja, and the sense of, you know, picking up the pieces as a theme through this piece might come through. I don't know if anybody else who's newly joined now might like to have some input into this, maybe thinking about how important communities have been in supporting mental health and well-being of perhaps the most vulnerable people, or if anybody wants to tell us about any activities that they know have been going on in their patch, that would be really useful.
I've got a few comments. I'm sorry, go on, Marie.
Hi, I was just going to comment just a couple of things, Rhiannon. I think that there's two issues. I think you were talking about those people who've been volunteering during COVID, because some of them were furloughed or they were working from home, and clearly as we enter hopefully the post-COVID, then they may not have as many opportunities. I think it'd be really useful to see how we can capture what those opportunities gave those people as individuals, how it helped their individual mental health and well-being, but also what is happening to them now. But I think the other big issue as well, which I'm quite involved in the community project where I live, which is obviously in rural North Wales, is that many volunteers were over 70, many volunteers, I mean pre-COVID now, many over 80 in fact. And of course, when COVID came, they lost all their volunteering roles. Because many of them were actually shielding, even though they hadn't been told to, were shielding. And for many of those people, it's coming up to a year where they haven't volunteered. And I think it's really interesting to see, what has happened to those people. I know from personal anecdotes, they have struggled hugely themselves, but also what it's done to their mental health and how we can support, capture, or help those people to perhaps think of other ways that they can actually volunteer. Because I think for many of those, especially older people, many of them perhaps were widowed or were quite socialized themselves. It was actually their lifeline, as well as supporting other people. So I just think that there's lots of different aspects. And personally, I think obviously we're looking at ARC, but I think perhaps if you wanted a comparator, some of the rural communities where I live in North Wales would be good comparators as well, to see if there's any difference. And that there may not be, but that would be interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks, Mary. That's really, really helpful. And I think, you know, that strand around what's been lost in terms of meaningful and purposeful activity in the previously furloughed and in the perhaps the older age who do make up a large proportion of the volunteer force, if you like, is really interesting. Definitely something that we should pick up on, I think. Any thoughts following Mari's or anything other than that? Have we got any public advisors here? I can see some names, but not everybody. Any thoughts from public advisors?
Hi, my name's Nahid. I'm a public advisor from Liverpool.
Hi, Nahid.
And I suffer from mental health, and obviously I'm also a full-time carer, so that impacted quite badly during lockdown on my mental health, but not only mine, obviously on the whole family, because you're with each other 24/7. And the schools closing didn't help my other children, obviously the younger ones, because my daughter, who I look after, is much older. And what's helped me is that there's an organisation called UK Cycling, and they have started cycling groups in lockdown. So that for me has been very beneficial, specifically mentally. And also obviously there is an advantage of the physical side as well, but more so just getting on a bike and having that sense of freedom for me. It's really helped.
That's really interesting.
And the whole family has noticed the impact of that on me. And my husband, just the last couple of weeks, he's decided to join me. And so he's also noticed the benefits as well. And it's something that as a couple we just do for, say, 1 hour at the weekend. But it's just given us that space away from what's going on at home. And I think the campaign at the moment as well, there's a new campaign over the Christmas period specifically aimed at isolation. I've been involved in that and given my viewpoint as well as a carer.
Well, that's really useful. Thanks, Naheed, for those inputs. Is the Cycling UK, is that a voluntary organisation? Is it run by volunteers or how
it is, yeah. It's UK Cycling.
Yeah. And so is there potential, I suppose there's potential for anybody to volunteer and create a group like that then in the local area?
Oh yes, definitely. I mean, the group which was directly under UK Cycling, it's called Cycle of Life. And it's actually created a lot of cyclists from the ethnic minorities group, from the BAME group, who, like myself, it's a bit of a, it's just not seen as, a female getting on a bike in families. So that is, it's just really helped. And it obviously, when I'm on a bike, other people have seen me, and that's encouraged them to start cycling as well. So they've started a number of groups, yeah.
So it seems like, developing new habits that could potentially break down what were previously cultural barriers can actually happen.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thanks, Naheed. Anybody else got any thoughts about how we could bring forward this kind of research, how we could make it happen? I was asking people previously if a scope of activity that was going on through the Northwest Coast to support vulnerable people during COVID might be something that we could do. Would that feel manageable to people? I think we've got a reasonably good start in that, but might be a useful thing to do. And then to follow up in relation to the impacts of being involved in those activities and the impact on the community as well. I mentioned as well potentially linking up to social prescribing activities, which seems possible. Any thoughts on that from anyone?
Again, Rhiannon, I think something like cycling, and especially when it's in the community and it's community led, that should definitely, I think the group are looking into having it socially prescribed out to people, because I think until you take part in it, you don't realise how beneficial it is. For me, myself, I am active, but I've never had an activity that has mentally been so beneficial for me.
That's really good to hear. I have to say, I used to cycle into work every day, and I really miss that. And I don't somehow seem to be able to find the time during the day to cycle for leisure instead. So I definitely know where you're coming from. I understand that. It's a really good way of engaging with your thoughts in a different sort of way. It puts you in a different frame of mind, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Any other thoughts from anybody?
Hannah, can I just mention about social prescribing? And certainly, again, I think that there are the issues about that are that some of the groups for which people were advised to link it in with for social prescribing, unfortunately, have either, well, they're either sort of, well, they stopped during lockdown and they haven't restarted.